Hello, viewers. It's yet another edition of Being the Help I Needed. We promised you the second part of the recording. It was lengthy, so we had to split it into two. So this is the continuation of the story of Samson. Yeah, so just a recap of what we've done so far. We've talked about the parental control that the parents had on Samson and how Samson made a couple of wrong decisions. And we said that based on what Samson did in the beginning, it looked as if he was going to compound and building on the mistakes that he did. First of all, he entered into a territory he wasn't supposed to enter. And then secondly, he also went into the vineyard, which was against the instructions of being a Nazirite. And then because of that, he still saw the hand of God working upon his life, and that kind of deceived him to make him feel like everything was okay. So I remember saying that you might be operating in the giftings of God, but if you are not careful, you are going to face consequences that you caused for yourself. So we are going to continue from where we left off, and by God's grace, we are sure that we are going to cover much grounds as much as possible, but most importantly, we will give you some lessons that you can take as snapshots from the story of Samson. So my name is Theophilus Lamptey, and this is Being the Help I Needed. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Facebook channels, and the handle is Theophilus Lamptey Ministries. I'm here with my very good friend and brother, Pastor Kotei, who has been very splendid. He's been amazing. He's supported this program from the very inception, and we say that may God bless and keep him. Pastor Ross, you want to start with the second part of it, or you just want to continue from where we left off, where Samson has gone to kill the lion, and anything else that you want to take us through from that?
Thank you for the opportunity one more time. At this point, Samson had gone past where he can blame his parents for anything that goes on.
That's right.
Because Samson now is a matured man on his own who has received all the instructions. And may I announce to you that there is a stage when you get to in your life, you can no longer hold your parents responsible.
That's true.
You must come to the place of accepting responsibility so that whatever they were not able to give you, whatever teachings they were not able to teach you, and whatever bringing they were not able to give you, you find ways and means to augment so that you become a better person. You become a better person. So at this stage, we see Samson who has adventured in going to a place he wasn't sanctioned to go, who has also tried his hands the first time on drinking alcohol. And so Samson at this point was losing his spirituality.
That's right.
Because he has fallen in love. Isn't it amazing that you were on fire for God, and the day you fell in love to that guy or that lady, all of a sudden your love for the things of God withered away.
All of a sudden.
My brother, my sister, it didn't begin with you. It began with Samson, and we see it clearly here. Now, everything, all that God had told him he would become was being watered down because he had fallen in love.
That's right.
So Samson at this point has urged the parent that, look, this is the lady I want to marry. So let's go ahead and do all that we want to do. And so the parents at this point decided to play along with the demands of Samson. But may I announce to you that marriage is not that thing you just enter simply because there is something giggling in your body, and the word is giggling. Because there is more to marriage than that giggling thing in your body. You know, they call it butterflies. They found words to call it butterflies. But my brother, my sister, there is more to butterflies, because this thing called marriage can either make or unmake your destiny. But Samson didn't get to know. And one thing I found interesting here was the kind of friend Samson had. You and I know that when it comes to the choice of who a best man is supposed to be, it is our body that we choose for a best man.
That's right.
And I'm wondering what kind of friendship Samson kept around him, because his choice of a best man was a wicked one. A best man who can take over your marriage and marry the lady you intend to marry is not a good person
at all.
And so when you look at it carefully, you could see that Samson has missed it totally. Samson had taken the mom and the dad, and they were going to have their marriage ceremony. Number one, we saw that Samson at this point was very disrespectful to his parents.
That's right.
May I announce to you that you will not expect to succeed in marriage when you are disrespectful to your parents. I know people who, for some reasons, because they are going to get married, they hail the voice of their men of God than the voice of their parents.
Mercy.
But may I announce to you that when it comes to marriage, is the merging of two families. Your parents play a major role in your marriage than your pastor plays. And so Samson at this point was very disrespectful to his parents. And so right from there, I knew this marriage would not succeed. Number two, Samson was not emotionally intelligent, ready to marry.
That's right.
Everything giggling in his body was making sense. But the maturity, the emotional intelligence to stay married, Samson didn't have it. And isn't it amazing that sometimes we allow what we feel and the things that goes on in our body to lead us to want to get married, and then after we are faced with the challenges that be, we want to exit. So Samson was disrespectful. Number one. Number two, Samson was not emotionally intelligent enough to stay married, and so he got upset and abandoned his wedding. And then number three, Samson's choice of friends played out in his choice of a best man who later went ahead and married the woman he was intending to marry. So let me paint the picture for you. You are the groom, the one going to get married, and your best friend follows you to the engagement. And then during the celebration, you decide to come out with a riddle, and your prospectors, your future in-laws couldn't answer the riddle, and so your wife to be came to you and found ways and means to convince you to give out the answer to the riddle because a lot was at stake. And then out of love, you gave out the information, and then she went to give the hint, and then you lost the bet. And so therefore you had to pay a huge sum to recompense the loss. And because you lacked emotional intelligence, you left trying to go cool down and come back. And by the time you cool down and came back, your best man had married your wife to be. That was the kind of situation Samson found himself in. So the choice of friends that Samson had was a bad friend, was a bad company. And so Samson was not only disrespectful to parents, Samson was not only emotionally unintelligent, Samson also made wrong choices and was in the wrong company of friends. But aside all of these, Samson was a very romantic man.
Wow.
Samson was so romantic. And being romantic and overly romantic was what led to the taking away of his eyes. How do I know? When the lady to be, the wife to be, came to convince him to give out the information, he gave it out willingly, and he lost the first time. Guess what? Delilah used the same formula as to where is the strength of you, Samson? And Samson, guess what? Out of being romantic again, gave out the information. Although he knew a lot was at stake, he still gave out the information. And this time round, it cost him his eyes. And so Samson was a very romantic man, but very disrespectful to his parents, was not that kind of person who would listen to nobody. Samson, number two, had already chosen the bad company of friends. He wasn't having the best of people around him. And sometimes we fall because of romance. But listen, when a man or lady is disrespectful, it will affect your marriage. When the person is keeping the wrong company of friends, it will affect your marriage, because these people are people of influence when it comes to that person's decision. And so let's be watchful from these things that Samson is teaching us today.
Thank you very much, Pastor Ross. Talking about the companion, I wanted to bring in, because nowadays I want our viewers to be reading the Bible as much. That was what Pastor Ross told me the other time. He said he wants you guys to also be reading the Bible. So we shouldn't be just discussing. We should pinpoint the things in the Bible. So the verse 10 of chapter 14 is saying, as his father was making final arrangements for the marriage, Samson threw a party at Timnah, as was the custom for elite young men. When the bride's parents saw him, they selected 30 young men from the town to be his companions. So you see, like Pastor Ross is talking about, who are your company? When Samson was going for this wedding thing, the people that went with him are the father, the mother, and it looked as if there was one person who became the best man. We didn't see Samson taking Israelites to the function. So when it was time for them to have a party or a get-together to celebrate a young man who is about to marry, the people they needed to make the party were people that were in the territory of the enemy. Mm-hmm. So you are going to marry an enemy, and the people that are there at the event are also your enemies. Where do you stand? Mm-hmm. Pastor Ross said, be careful about your best man. How is it that the prospective husband is offended and leaves the wedding site, yet still the best man stayed? Because if you read what the best man, if you read what the Bible is saying, it made us understand that when Samson was not there, the lady's father gave the lady to the best man. So how is it that I am angry with what has happened, and you are my best man, and I'm going, and you didn't go with me, and you stayed to the point that my wife was given to you to marry? This is a very dangerous man.
And he married the lady too.
Oh yes, a very, very dangerous best man to be. So we need to be very careful about the friends we keep. So Samson obviously was setting himself up. And I said something that when he went into the vineyard and he killed the lion, he was also setting a trap for himself he did not know. Because had he not killed the lion, for him to see that honey had been produced on the carcass of the lion, for him to take some and eat, he would not have used that as a riddle when they were having the party. Because you see, at that point, Samson became overconfident. Arrogance had sprung up within him that this thing, nobody can figure it out. He did not know that he had a weakness with women. Pastor Rod said his romantic tendencies gave him out. So you see, pride and arrogance will go ahead of the fall. When you see that, you know that there is danger. So he felt nobody will know this thing. No, because nobody, what was the role of a riddle in the party? He wanted to show off. And it caused him a lot of challenges, because at the end of the day, he lost it because the wife came and the wife used this romantic drive to get the answer. And he knew that they could not get it unless the wife told them, because when they came, he said, if you had not hung around my wife or gotten this answer from my wife, you would not know. But what can you do? You've still gotten the answer. So Samson now had to go and come and pay the price. And again, God uses it as an advantage to kill some of the Philistines, which was the original purpose for God, for Samson. But you see, Samson was using the wrong road continually, and God was still fulfilling his purpose continually. But Pastor Ross said eventually Samson lost his eyes. I can tell you for a fact that that was not what God meant for Samson to become in the end. So one lesson I want you to appreciate is that when God calls you for something, or when God puts an assignment in your spirit, there are different roads you can use to get to that destination. The purpose will be fulfilled anyways. But there is a path which is for God. But God will not force you to choose that path. That path might be difficult. It might involve a lot of self-discipline and self-control, but it will save you. But the other options that can also take you to the destination can cause you to lose your eyes. So God has said so many things about you, but how you get there is your choice. If you go the wrong way, God will say nothing, but you will pay the price. But God will make sure that his assignment will still be fulfilled. So at the end of the day, God dealt with the Philistines, but it did not end well with Samson. So Samson's choice of friends were very terrible. A lot of arrogance and pride with him. And Pastor Ross, there's one thing I've also realized before you come in. It looked as if Samson necessarily did not pay attention to the assignment God has given him, because we did not see Samson having fellowship to connect with God.
That's where you see the parental failure, because there was so much concern about him beginning the deliverance of Israel from the hands of the Philistines than doing what was very needful. And so it's just like a parent who has been privileged to receive a visitation from God that your son is going to become the president of Ghana. And so they do everything in their power to train him to become the president of Ghana, but they forget to train him to know about Jesus for himself. They forget to train him to become a good husband. So yes, he becomes the president, but he doesn't fear God. And so typically what we see here is a Samson who knows that he has unusual power, unusual strength, that something comes upon him and then he's able to move himself and do things. He knew all of that one, but he was not trained to have that constant fellowship. So as a Nazarite, one was expecting that he will be somebody who will bury his head probably in serious fasting and prayers and in serious Bible studies. But no, rather, he was that kind of person who loved to go out and chill. He was that kind of person who wants to go out there and keep company of ungodly people. Because when you check him out very well, you realize that he wasn't that kind of person who had a flow with his own people. He didn't have so much flow with the Israelites. How do I know? It became so bad that when the Philistines came, the Israelites were ready to how do they say it? They were ready to give him out
they gave
to the
him out.
Philistines.
They bound him and gave him out.
Exactly. So it's to tell you that Samson was not a homely person. He wasn't fine with the people at home. He wasn't okay with the people around him. He always wanted to do something for the people to know that, look, all of you are not at my level. So the only place Samson could fit in was in the territory of the enemy. Because at home, everybody revered him as the champion. And so that was where, and the territory of the enemy, they don't fear God. So how would they teach you to fear God? They don't go to church. So how would they teach you to go to church? They don't read their Bible. So how would they teach you to read your Bible? And so that was how Samson's parents let down Samson. But like I said, at this stage, as a wise child, you should know that if there is this level of responsibility on me, then I should also be able to find ways and means of connecting to the source. And so Samson at this point could not use the parent failure as an excuse because he had grown up enough to know God for himself. But like you said, pride was always going ahead of him because he had something nobody had in his time. And so it allowed those things to get to him. Amazingly, in the chapter 15 of Judges, the verse 1,
yes, sir.
He said, but it came to pass within a while after in the time of wheat harvest that Samson visited his wife with a kid. Also, please read your version for me. Let's see what the scripture is saying over there.
Later on, during the wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat as a present to his wife. He said, I'm going into my wife's room to sleep with her, but her father wouldn't let him.
Okay, so clearly here, I told you that Samson is a romantic guy. This is somebody who has abandoned the lady on their engagement day. So he knows he had wronged her. And so he's going back to make peace. And guess what? When he was going, he went with a present.
That's right.
That's a very romantic guy.
Very romantic man.
He's a wild guy. And so he went with a present to go and appease the babe, you know. And then when he went there, the father told him, okay, I don't know what is going on. He said, what is going on? Verse 2. And her father, that's her father, the lady's father, which is Samson's supposed and father-in-law, said, I verily thought that thou hadst utterly hated her.
That's right.
Therefore, I gave her to thy best man, your companion. Is not a younger sister fairer than she? Take her, I pray thee, instead of her. Which means the one you intend to marry, I've already given her out. So if you don't mind and you are still interested in finding a lady in my home,
another one is
the younger sister is there.
Oh my.
And look at the verse 3. And Samson said concerning them, now shall I be more blameless than the Philistine, though I do them a displeasure. And Samson went and caught 340. So he came to appease, said, my sorry, I was upset, I misbehaved, I am here to make peace. And then when he was told the news that your wife has been given out to your best man, he got angry.
The guy charged again.
The guy got upset again and said, you know what, we can't be. I came here to make peace, but the way I've do, I have to get back at you. And got upset again and caused mayhem.
Yeah.
And it was the season of harvest.
Yeah.
And caused mayhem in the land of Philistine. And so you see somebody who had not mastered his emotions. And let me announce to you that please and please, your ability to master your emotions is one of the surest way of attaining your destiny.
Amen.
It's so keen and it's so keen because if you don't master it and you lose it, you'll be amazed what will turn out in life. Because sometimes all the enemy is going to do is to get you upset. Isn't it obvious that when Job was going through his predicament, the wife was upset?
Oh, yeah.
And he said, curse God and die. And then and then we have lost everything. Curse God and die. It's not curse God so that we die. He said, curse God and so that you will die.
Not part, you alone.
And so that I can marry another
rich
so
man.
curse
Your
God
friends
and
are
die.
rich men.
So curse God and die. And say, for once, let me tell you the truth. You are speaking like a foolish woman.
That's right.
I can't curse God and die. And so anytime you lose your cool in your path on your journey of fulfilling destiny, it is possible that you will curse God. And so Samson was always losing his cool. He was always losing his cool. And it was like the enemy always knew how to press the buttons for him to misbehave. And so now Samson had not only become disrespectful to his parents, Samson had not only now ventured into territories he wasn't supposed to venture in. Samson has not now become a drunkard or somebody who was now drinking. Now Samson had not gone beyond now eating honey from the carcass of a lion, but now Samson has become broken-hearted. And you know, when you are broken-hearted, probably you've not been there before. So for those of us who have been there, let us tell you. Master, you can become so broken-hearted that you forget that you've not eaten for the past 3 days.
That's right.
You can become so broken-hearted that you wear different socks and different shoes to work. My brother, you can become so broken-hearted. And two, this is a Greek word.
Yeah.
You broken heart can mess you up. And so at this point, Samson was messed up. A man, a guy, a friend he trusted had gone ahead to marry his wife. So emotionally, he was shattered.
That's right.
And guess what? Because Samson was not that kind of person who was homely and was that person who was respectful to parents, there wasn't a medium for Samson to heal. The people he called friends already were people he didn't know anyway. The only one he knew who was his best man had taken his wife. And so he now had to return to Israel messed up.
That's right.
And in Israel, he respected nobody. He had relationships with nobody. So who was he going to cry to? Who was he going to talk to? Who was going to listen to him? Who was going to counsel to him? Even the parents he didn't listen to. So at that point, when he came home, I'm sure the father was looking at him. And so everybody was just staying away from him. And because of this, Samson made the next wrong move.
That's right.
By falling for the last card, the trump card of the enemy. And that was how Delilah came into the picture.
Let me tell them something before Delilah comes. When I wanted to continue from where you ended, because he was so messed up and he had kind of destroyed all the possible cushions and shields he could have used in terms of healing. When he came back, you see where he went to live. Let me find a bit. Yes. So he attacked the Philistines with great fury and killed many of them. Then he went to live in a cave in the rock of Etam. And that was what I wanted to add to what you said, that he had already messed up his background. The parental side was destroyed. So proud and arrogant, his own Israelites did not even like him. Now you've offended the people that you were going to marry from. And you've been fighting them here and there. So he was now a lone ranger. So the only place fit for him was in the cave, in a cave in the rock of Etam. And this is what I wanted also to add. The Philistines came after him. Now, when the Philistines came after him, it was his own people, the Israelites, that went to talk to him. And then they came to hand him over to the Philistines. But beloved that is listening to me, I am taking it from this perspective that, you see, I am so sure that because of Samson's pride and arrogance, it's possible that the Israelites did not even know that he's been sent to deliver them. It looks as if all what Samson had been doing so far was chasing his own agenda and desires. So we can't necessarily blame the Israelites for coming to bound to go and hand over Samson to their enemies. Because somebody will say, why are you binding your deliverer to go and give it to your enemies, those that are enslaving you? It's because they did not see Samson as a deliverer. They saw Samson as a romantic man following after his heart. You see, so the path that Samson could have used for the deliverance of Israel, Samson obviously was not using it. So it wasn't obvious for the inhabitants of Israel. So when it came that the people that were oppressing them, the Philistines, came and demanding Samson, they had no option than to go and get Samson for them. So I'm sure they did not even find the worth or value of Samson at the time. Because all Samson was doing was chasing his agenda, trying to marry. Somebody takes his wife, is angry, he's fighting here and there. So they cannot connect the dots. What really do you represent? What is your worth? Believer that is listening to me, we can only be seen by the image we create for ourselves. So you can't blame the Israelites for handing over Samson to the Philistines who wanted to kill him. Because Samson had not created or painted that image of a deliverer for them. They saw somebody who was self-centered, egoistic, somebody who was chasing his own agendas, and they were better off being in slavery. So is it possible that the actions people are meting out to you is as a result of the way you are living your life that is giving them an image? Probably that is not the right image. But if you don't work hand in hand with God concerning the purposes for which you are created, your original value will be watered down. And it is possible that the people that God has raised you for will hand you over to the devil on a silver platter. May we be careful. May we stay with God so that everything that he has ordained us to be, we'll be able to fulfill it. The moment we disobey instructions, we lose dominion in that area God has given us. Samson obviously disobeyed a lot of divine instructions. At this point, he has failed or broken all the rules of being a Nazarene. He was drinking, not wholly separated and set apart for God. He was hanging around with the wrong company. He had even eaten from a dead animal. It was part of their rules not to have anything to do with a carcass. But he took the honey from the carcass of the lion. He walked in the vineyard and all of that. So obviously Samson had broken all the rules. When you break the rules or when you disobey God, you become powerless. You can be operating in the gift of God, but you are powerless. Because obedience brings power. And that is what we don't know. So the fact that you are operating in the gift of God does not make you powerful. It is God just demonstrating what he can do. But you will pay for the consequences. And when you pay for the consequences, then you will know that you are powerless. Pastor Ross, can we take them to the climax now, where you wanted to go about the Delilah story? And then maybe getting to the end, we will just list a few lessons that we can take. Because, funny enough, most of us know the story about Samson and Delilah. And we don't know about Samson with the Timnah woman. That's why I was happy that we spent a lot of time there before the Delilah story. The Delilah story is so interesting that let me read the chapter 16 for you and then you will take off. He said, one day Samson went to the Philistine town of Gaza and spent the night with a prostitute. Oh, Uncle Samson. Word soon spread that Samson was there. So the men of Gaza gathered together and waited all night at the town gates. They kept quiet during the night, saying to themselves, when the light of morning comes, we will kill him. But Samson stayed in bed only until midnight. Then he got up, took hold of the doors of the town gate, including the 2 posts, and lifted them up, bar and all. He put them on his shoulder and carried them all the way to the top of the hill across the Hebron. 4. Sometime later, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah, who lived in the valley of Sorek. Pastor Ross.
Amazingly, a lot of people thought Delilah was a prostitute. Delilah is not a prostitute. Right. So if you were ever thought that Delilah was a prostitute, please, Delilah is not a prostitute. It was after Samson had slept with the prostitute. Yep. Bible said afterwards. And then he came to meet Delilah. And so just like the first lady, the lady in Timnath, he meets Delilah and he fell in love. But again, you will see that there has been some transition over the period. So Samson was broken-hearted, and because he didn't have any means of cushioning himself and putting himself together, he started now patronizing harlots. And then after he has practiced that for a while, then he meets another woman of his dreams. And you and I know that when you have been in a relationship before and you are able to pinpoint, you are frank enough with yourself to pinpoint some of the mistakes you did which cost you your first relationship, and you are very wise, what you seek to do is that you don't repeat the same mistakes in your next relationship.
That's right.
And so at this point, Samson didn't want his emotion to take the best part of him. And so when you look at Samson's relationship with Delilah, he wasn't angry at any time. Because in the previous relationship, he couldn't manage his emotions and it cost him the woman of his dreams. Right. So at this point, Samson was very careful not to get upset like what he did in the first. And so at this point, Samson, one would say, Although Samson was still in a mess, Samson was getting the pieces together. Samson was coming together bit by bit. And so he at this point had dealt with his weakness of emotional intelligence. He has worked on it. And so Samson at this point was not going to get upset. And so he put himself together and was able to manage the relationship so well that the Philistine noticed that this is a different Samson. And so they decided to strike a deal with Delilah that if you can tell us the secret to this man's strength, we are going to reward you handsomely. But here is the catch. Delilah didn't love Samson as much as Samson loved her.
That's right.
And please listen. If you are falling in love with somebody and it looks like you are the one forcing the relationship to hold, and that person is being like a sidika in the relationship, that person is being reserved, that person is like he's not so forthcoming in the relationship, please pause and look at it again. Samson didn't do that. Samson had fallen head over heel with Delilah, that he didn't care whether Delilah was forthcoming or not. And sometimes when you have been hurt in a past relationship, you want another relationship to prove a point. And so Samson was not watching out for all the red flags. And so he went into this thing with all of his heart, ready to get it right. But unfortunately, he fell in love with somebody who didn't love him that much. My brother, please come in and say something.
Is it not interesting that Samson was able to master or deal with a part of his life? What am I saying, a part of his life? And I like the way you brought the anger bit. He was able to deal with the anger bit, and we saw that well playing out with the marriage with Delilah. But if you look at it carefully, you see that Samson still had that problem with his sensuality. That means the sensuality of Samson was still dormant. The fact that it is not happening does not mean that it is gone. So it took about 20 years. Bible history makes us see that it's about 20 years from the Timnah relationship to the time he went into the prostitute at Gaza. But because that thing was inside him, it is what we call the sinful nature. It was inside him and he had not dealt with it. He had not mortified it. So at any little opportunity, it will spring forth. And that was what happened to him. So we see that he quickly goes there and he went in to a prostitute. And after that one, he now goes in to, to the Valley of Sorek, and then fell in love with another woman called Delilah. So all this while, Samson did not know that he had a weakness that the devil knows. And I was saying that from the beginning, when he was with the Timnah woman and all of that riddle thing happened, I said Samson was setting himself up for trouble. He didn't know. So you see that he had fallen into the same trap that he set for himself. The people asked for the riddle. He asked a riddle that the people could not answer. And they used the wife. Because he was romantic, they used the wife to siphon the answer from him. And he knew that the wife gave the answer. But Samson repeats the same thing again with Delilah. And I'm sure that the news has spread. The Philistines had gotten that information. That intel was being held. They were keeping it very dear to their heart. This is top secret. Because Samson was not an ordinary man. He was doing abnormal things. How can one person kill 1,000 people with the jawbone of an ass? So the news was definitely recorded in their archives. So when they saw that this man had fallen in love again with another woman from our territory, we will employ the same trick. So although he had worked on his anger, his desire for sex and pleasure was still there. He did not kill it. So he fell to that again. And then the authorities had to connive with Delilah, knowing that if this guy comes to fight us, we cannot handle it based on what he did to us some time ago. When we went and the Israelites handed him over to us, look at what he did to thousands of our men. So this is not a man we can go and fight physically. There is something more to him. If you can be able to pick it up, we will reward you. And you rightly said, the wife did not love Samson because Samson had not gotten to understand or being trained well about what marriage was all about. He thought marriage was all about pleasure. So all he was seeking was pleasure. He didn't know marriage was more than pleasure. So Pastor Ross is saying that we should be careful when things have happened in our life before. We should take a cue from it. We should learn. Why is it that Samson did not still go back and marry the Israelite women? He disregarded them. He didn't want to have anything to do with them. He felt they were not good enough for him. So oftentimes he will still repeat and go back to the enemy's camp. Brother, sister, why do we keep falling into the same cycle of sin over and over again? Are we not tired? Are we not learning a lesson from it? If we don't exit, if we don't run away, sooner than later, our eyes will be taken off and we will die with our enemies when we are supposed to kill our enemies. Samson was destined to destroy the Philistines, not to die with them. But he chose the wrong path and he ended up dying with the Philistines. So what I'm saying here is this. He did not deal with his sexual pleasures from the days of Timnah. And then the enemy used it. So then they were able to draw the answer from him. And you see, the power of a woman is so strong that if you are not careful, it will look as if she has cast a spell on you or you have been bewitched. Is it not serious that the woman will ask Samson, where is the source of your strength? And Samson will point her to one place. And Samson will wake up and see that that place has been exploited. And the next moment she will say, show me, and Samson will keep showing till the woman brought the love again, the romantic bits that Pastor Ross was talking about. If you really love me, you will not hide anything away from me. And it was obvious that Samson loved the woman, and the woman didn't love Samson. Because if you love your husband, you will not be looking for an information that will kill him. But Samson had thrown himself at the woman. The woman was just looking at cashing out from Samson. So eventually, the woman gives Samson's secret away. And that was how Samson became, a prisoner when he was supposed to be a deliverer. Pastor Ross, you want to say a few things, and then I will now begin to give out the lessons we've been able to pull out so far. We just say a word or two, and then we can comfortably bring Samson to a close.
One thing I would want you to understand is that the very things that came to you when you are down there will be the same things that will tempt you when you are up there.
That's right.
So that if you don't pass the test at the down there, you are going to feel miserably at the top. A lot of great men are falling, and sometimes we say, oh, it just happened. No. Whatever that made them fall when they were great, that same thing had tested them when they were nobodies.
That's right.
So all I'm saying is, now that nobody knows you as a man of God in your small corner there, that temptation of women, that temptation of pornography, that temptation of masturbation, that temptation of drinking, that temptation of stealing, if you don't deal with it in that small corner, an elevation is coming. And when that elevation comes, you will be disgraced big time. My politician brother, if you don't deal with it at that grassroots level, if you don't work on it at that grassroots level, if God elevates you to become an MP or even a minister of state, you are likely to be brought down to a big disgrace. And so whatever is going to happen to you at the top is what is happening to you now. So if at this stage of your life you have weaknesses with women, please and please make deliberate effort to work on it. If at this stage of your life you have weaknesses with drinking, stealing, and all of those evil vices, as a child of God, don't brush your eyes off it. Make a deliberate effort to work on it. Oftentimes we go to God in prayer asking for blessings, and guess what? The blessings will come, but because you didn't work on your weaknesses, that blessing will hit something in you, and that weakness will surface, and before you realize, what was meant to be a blessing is going to become a curse to you.
That's right.
I pray for you that the strength of God will be made perfect in your times of weaknesses.
Amen.
If there is any praying, you should be praying now. If there's any prayer, you should be praying now, that nobody knows you, that nobody is there watching you. This is the time to deal with that weaknesses, because on your day of elevation, that weakness will be the trump card the enemy is going to use to bring you down. Look at all our big men that we talk of. What are the things we didn't hear about them during their school days, during their growing up days? Isn't it amazing that even now at the top there, those same things are playing out? They are supposed to be for our learning. So I beg of you, make time, go and seek the face of God and ask God to help you in your place of weakness. Other than that, you'll be amazed what you'll be doing when God elevates you to the top.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. So I think because of time, we've kind of gone through the story of Samson before birth, how the parents were able to deal with him growing up, some of the mistakes they made, what Samson also continued from there that he was supposed to have amended. We are just going to look at a few lessons we can learn from it. I'll take one, Pastor Ross will explain one, and we'll see how far we can go with it. One of the things that people know about Samson is that he was the strongest man. You see, we don't have to be physically strong alone. We are most importantly advised to be spiritually strong in God. So don't just be excited because you have muscles. Have muscles in the spirit. That is what matters. When the devil comes face to face with you, he's going to put you on a scale. But the scale of the devil is not your physical body mass. It is the faith you carry. That is the amount of word of God you have inside of you. That determines your capacity in the spirit. So may we be strong in the Lord and not just be strong physically. One of the benefits we are looking at here is that we are called to live a holy life. And like we explained, the Nazarene or the Nazarite is supposed to be somebody who is wholly set apart for God's use. So all of us are set apart for God's use. The moment you become a child of God, the moment you become a believer, your life is no more yours. Your life is consecrated for the Master's use. So you are listening to me and any other person that you will send this thing to, what we are trying to say here is that we have to be able to live that holy life, one that is pleasing and acceptable before God. We cannot live like how every other person lives his life. And that was one of the things that we need to look at critically. That was missing in the life of Samson. He thought he could live anyhow. He thought he could mingle with anybody. He thought he could do anything. But later did he realize that it was to his own detriment and it will not be good for you. The fact that God is using you does not mean that what you are doing is good. We need to stay with God. And building strength in God, one of the ways is that we must live a holy life because God is holy. Pastor Ross, another lesson here that I want you to explain is that it says God uses bad situations to still fulfill his purpose. I don't know. I want you to just say one or two regarding that one. God will still use the bad situations to fulfill his purpose. Yes, sir.
It's because God knows what the enemy is capable of doing. And then number two is also because God knows the fallible nature of the candidate or person he's using. And so, as a good and a serious master planner, he should have a plan B so that when the enemy attacks from this front, or when the fallible nature of the candidate comes to play, he will have his way around it. And so, at the end of the day, God will always emerge the winner. Although the man or the candidate who was used flawed, messed up, or the enemy succeeded in finding his way through the initial plan. And so God would definitely come out as the winner. That is why our anchor and our sole focus should be on him and him alone.
Thank you very much, Pastor Ross. Another lesson that we are learning here is that every cause has its effect. Like we were talking about, we said that Samson was free to make choices for himself, but he was not free to choose the consequences. So there are things that come as a result of the decisions that we take. And we realize that he was free to walk to Timnah and get involved with the woman, but he paid a price. He was free to go into the prostitute. At the end of the day, look at a man carrying the gates of a city just because people had laid ambush to kill him. Those were the consequences of his actions. Eventually, he goes to fall in love with another Philistine lady called Delilah. And eventually, he got killed. I mean, he had to die with his enemies. He didn't get killed. He had to die with his enemies. But before he died, his eyes were plucked off. So those are some of the consequences of some of the, excuse my language, silly decisions that Samson made. So whatever decision you are making, understand that you are free. You have your free will to choose. But when it comes to the consequences, you don't play a part in that corridor. The consequences will come. So we need to be very careful. We need to think about the things that we are doing. Sometimes the effect might even have a ripple effect on our generations and the children yet unborn. So you might do something and then you think it's just about me. But if you are somebody with posterity in mind, you will know that it doesn't end with you. It will move on to your children and your children's children. And we need to be extremely careful. Pastor Ross, another lesson is that we need to be, I think you said it already, just highlight it again. We need to be very careful in our choice of a partner, a mate. We are not supposed to marry outside of our faith jurisdiction. And that was one thing Samson did. I want you to just comment on that one, and then I'll say the final one and your final word, and then we can wrap it up.
Often, believers like to play with this particular statement. When Bible said, do not be equally yoked with an unbeliever. It's something some Christians like to play with. And one of the common statements you hear them saying is, oh, he will change. He will change. God never called you to change somebody to marry the person. And so, as a child of God, the moment that person is an unbeliever, it is a no-go area for you. It is not something subjected to debate. It's not something subjected to human reasoning. It's a no-go area for you. If the person is going to change, you don't determine when the person will change. Right. Listen, men can be pretentious. They can pretend and pretend and pretend and pretend. The very day they land that marriage, you will see the true colors. So please and please, as a child of God, your sea of catch is only believers. I'm not talking about church goers. I'm talking about believers, Christians. Make sure your choice of a partner is a believer. Why? Because they play a major role in the fulfillment of God's agenda for your life.
And the final one I want to talk about is that if we look at the strength of Samson, he did not wholly use it for the assignment for which he was called to use it for. So we are trying to take a lesson here that we are supposed to use our strength for God's work. But it will interest you to know that the story of Samson is ended. Samson is gone. Now you are here, I am here. So whatever strength, whatever giftings, whatever endowments God has given us, we are supposed to make it applicable to the work of God. Beloved, we are in our prime. We have the energy, zeal, and enthusiasm. We are supposed to use it very well now. Because the Bible said there will be a time when you have no more desire for the things of God. What it means is that the energy level will come down. So why do you wait to begin to serve God when you are 65? When even your secular company might have retired you 5 years ago. Even in the secular world, they know that there is a time in your life when you are, useless to the organization, because they know you don't have much to give. But the devil will trick us in giving off all our prime energy to the secular world. And when we are drained and wasted, we come as fragile and weak people and try to offer that to God. What can you achieve at that age? So now that we are young, we are vibrant and energetic, this is the time that we are supposed to give God all our best. My brother, my sister that is listening to me, may we give God all the best we have, all the energy, all the strength, all the wisdom, and all the abilities that He has given us. May we put it to God's work, and I can guarantee you that your life will never be the same again. Pastor Ross, your concluding remarks, you say hello to a few people, and then we can bring the curtains down for today.
For Samson, it was strength. But for you, it could be singing.
That's right.
For you, it might be giving. For you, it might be intercession. For you, it might be service. Whichever one it is, just have this understanding. Everything God gifted you with is to serve people, not to lord over people, but to serve them. If the power that God has given to you is not serving the people, but lording over the people, then you're already out of the will of God. So do everything possible to serve with what God has given to you. And may it not be said of you that you lorded it over people. It is possible that you can be taken away by the gift that God has given to you, just like Samson was swayed away because he had something nobody in his town had. He had something nobody in Israel had. Yes, it is true. Nobody sings as better as you do, but it is not to lord over them because they also have something that you don't have. Don't forget, it is not a competition. It's all about complementing one another. I want to say a big thank you to my brother Theophilus Lamptey for the honor and the exposure and the privilege to be here. I want to also say a very big thank you to Pastor Isaac Ayesu, Dr. Daniel Kotei, and Elder Majoris, all of the core network for their support and guidance and all of that. And also a big thank you to my wife, Lydia, for all that she does behind the scenes. I am grateful to God for this opportunity and thank you for tuning in. God richly bless you.
God bless you very much, my brother. As Christians, we have a higher calling than the pursuit of happiness. It is the pursuit of holiness. Samson was pursuing happiness instead of holiness. The life of a Christian is a life of overcomers and not a life of conformers. Samson was trying to conform to the norm of the time instead of overcoming the desires of the flesh. And it will interest you to know that divine instructions are tailor-made. It is not generalized. The life of a Nazarene at the time were given to people for a duration of time, but Samson's life was given for the entire period he was alive. So the divine instruction that people have might be general, but when it comes to you and the dealings you have with God, yours will be tailor-made. So don't just take what everybody is taking. Go and have a conversation with God. Go and have a tete-a-tete with God, and God will tell you exactly what your divine instruction entails. I want to say thank you very much to God Almighty for giving us this privilege, giving us the strength, inspiration, and wisdom to come and discuss His word. And I pray for all the hearts that are gathered, that listen to us, those that support us in diverse ways. We say, may God richly bless you. We want to encourage you that keep on subscribing, keep on sharing the messages, keep on sending us the comments, the remarks, the testimonies, all these things together encourage us and make us keep on doing the things that we are doing. And I want to say a very big thank you to my brother, Pastor Ross Kotei, who has been very, very supportive, and the wife, Mama Lydia, who releases him to be a blessing to us, because it's not easy to release a man of God each and every single time the congregation are after him. We pray that, Mama, may God bless and keep you. And whatever you've lost for our sake, may God replenish it in thousandfold. And may your house forever and ever remain under the umbrella of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I want to thank my wife as well, who makes sure that all the productions are done behind the scenes, and all the support, all the setups here and there, everything together that makes sure that this program comes on time and comes on very well. You know how men are. We really don't care about some of these things. But when you see it happening nicely like that, there is a woman behind the scenes. May God bless you and keep you. And to all our lovely viewers, anybody that makes time to listen to us, we say we love you. We say that may God bless and keep you. We want to say a little shout outs to the Called Network, Dr. Daniel, Elder McJoris, Pastor Isaac, and the rest of the team that are there. I want to say hello to Ellis, Dowona, and we want to say hello to Gloria, to Ophebia, to my sisters Faustina and Patience, my mom and dad, to every person that makes sure that this program is a success. We say may God bless you. Till we meet again next week, it's bye-bye from us and stay blessed.